Shwmae pawb, hello everybody, welcome to my wild Welsh garden, croeso. Well, it's a very grey and cold day here in my wild Welsh garden, but I've got a couple of things that I absolutely must do today, so I've come out to do those. But while I was here, I thought I would fish the last of the cherry leaves out of the pond because Storm Bert blew them all down pretty much. So now the tree is almost completely bare. I've come into my shed because it's not quite so cold in here. So welcome again to my wild Welsh garden. My name's Isabel and I live here at the top of the Swansea Valley in Wales. And in these videos I'm documenting my journey and my progress, wilding my garden and trying to make it better for wildlife. In my last video, I asked if there was anything that people didn't like or would like less of or more of in these videos. And most people who commented said that they're quite happy with the videos as they are. So yeah, it's kind of business and videos as usual, really. But if you do have any comments or any suggestions, please put them in the comments. I love to hear from you. I love to hear, what you're doing in your gardens. But on with the video. Have you ever heard of FOMO? Well, it's usually a term used by young people, I think, with regard to sort of social media and social things, fear of missing out. Yeah, and I think there's such a thing as plant FOMO as well, and I do think that that's what I'm suffering from. I've just turned you round. That's the view from my shed. And I've had another parcel delivery. Do you know, I just love having deliveries of parcels of plants and trees. And this one came yesterday. And it's the tiniest tree you've ever seen. From the Woodland Trust. It's a small-leaved lime. I follow Samina of My Messy Plot on YouTube. She used to live in London with an allotment and now she lives in West Wales with a small holding, and she's been ordering bare root trees and hedging plants, and she's so excited and I feel so excited for her. But she was saying that she's bought a couple of these small leaved limes. Well, this is an indicator of, first of all, ancient woodland and also Celtic rainforest. And as you now know, I live in an area which at one time would have been covered in Celtic rainforest, and I'm surrounded by these little fragments. But I don't know that I've seen any small-leaved lime trees anywhere around, and I think they're actually quite rare. And I think part of the problem is they find it difficult to set viable seed. So when I heard that Samina was buying some, I thought, oh my goodness me, I have to have one. So yep, so I've got a small leaved lime. So this was my fear of missing out on a small leaved lime. I'll put a link in the description to Samina's channel. But there you go, there's the little tree. Not a bare root tree, it's been grown in a module. So I guess it's only a year old. And I'm planting it in a mixture of soil and compost of the kind that it's going to grow in eventually. But it's so tiny, I feel like I need to look after it really. So I think what I'm going to do is pot it up here and then maybe put it in the polytunnel, I think, where I can keep my eye on it. So there it is in the polytunnel. I've just given it a drink and it's with all the other wildflowers to keep it company. Storm Bert brought a lot of branches and twigs off the trees. These are just some that I picked up on a walk I did the other day. Thought I would use them to make a table decoration for Christmas. This has been a really good year for mosses and lichens. Normally they dry out over the summer months and stop growing, but this year's been so wet, I think they've just carried on growing all year. And that means that the trees around here just covered in these lovely mosses and lichens. And the next thing that I really must do is take some cuttings of my perennial kale. Well, I think you can see that Storm Bert blew it right over. It is a few years old now, so I may not be able to salvage it. I think that the roots may be damaged. So I want to take some cuttings and just keep it going. I took some cuttings last year, which were very successful. And I'm pretty sure all I did was I pulled off one of these sort of new young sprouts. I think you can see down there that it's sort of growing out of the stem that I've cut off for some reason, and then there's another one next. Very difficult to film. There's another one next to it down there. So I think I'm going to pull off 4 of those and take them in the shed and pop them up. Okay, those are the shoots that I pulled off with the heel at the bottom where they were attached to the stem. I think that one is too big. I think it's too sort of woody and robust. So I'm going to eat that one. And these are the 4 that I'm going to propagate from, I hope. So I'm just going to trim the ends a bit, take the bottom leaves off, cut the remaining leaves to reduce transpiration. And then I've got a mixture here of pretty much half and half potting compost and grit to put them in. So there are the shoots with their bottom leaves removed and the remaining leaves trimmed. And there's the pot with the compost and grit. Now I do have a little sort of mini dibber which I can't find, so I'm going to use the end of a wooden spoon and just make a hole like that and pop the cutting in. So there you go, there's the cuttings. So I'm just going to give them a water and put them in the polytunnel. I think that's what I did last year. And this is where it would have been helpful to have kept a notebook and written down what I did, but as you can tell I didn't, and I'm trying to remember. And yes, I'm really sad that I'm afraid this one's had it. It was so heavy I couldn't lift it. It's just like a tree. So yeah, I'm afraid that's the end of that particular perennial kale. But fortunately I have another little one here. This was a cutting, one of the cuttings I took last year. And I have a slightly bigger one here. And the next question is, do I tidy this bed up or do I just leave it as habitat for creatures until the spring? Yes, at this point I haven't decided. And now I'm losing the light. I hope you can see the sun is setting over there. Just some little pink clouds. So I'm going to think about it overnight and decide what to do. And hopefully I'll have a dry day tomorrow to do whatever I've decided. Well, I'm going to have to say this before I go, that Geranium Roseanne has finally finished flowering. It's next morning and it's another grey day, but not quite so cold. And what I've decided to do is to leave the bed as it is, the vegetable bed. Because I thought if some creatures had decided to hibernate on the perennial kale and I cut it all up and put it on the compost, then all those little lives will be lost. So It's not going to do any harm. It can just stay there over the winter, and then in the spring I'll plant something else. And for those of you who haven't watched my previous videos, I always grew brassicas under a big cage. And this year I decided to take the cage away and see what happened. Well, of course, they just got eaten to death by caterpillars. And this big, huge, monstrous perennial kale was home to lots and lots of large and small white caterpillars. And I thought, well, that's it really. It's not going to recover, but it did, and it produced all these lovely new shoots. And if it hadn't been so monstrous and blown over, it would have fed me all winter. And, to be fair, it would have blown over whether it had a cage on it or not. In fact, the cage would probably have blown away, to be honest. So yeah, I think the thing is, if I grow a perennial kale, then it will feed me and the butterflies. I've come down to outside the back door because I've been thinking about what to do with these spindles, and I've decided I'm going to keep one here because I love looking at them. They're so pretty, and the birds like to perch in them on the way to the bird table. So I'm going to put that one into a bigger pot so it doesn't blow over every time it's windy. And did you know that it's National Tree Week this week? And yesterday, I think it was yesterday, was National Oak Day. So just to celebrate that, I'll show you two little oak trees that I grew from acorns, which I picked up on one of my walks. And then over this side is the other spindle, the taller one, and the older buckthorn, which was also by the bird table. And I've decided where I'm going to put both of those. I'm going to put those up near the hedge at the top of the garden. I'll show you where. This little patch here in front of the raspberries has rhubarb in it. Well, we brought 3 rhubarb plants with us when we moved, and it was Roger that liked rhubarb, really. I'm not that fussed. So I'm going to dig one up that's over that side, and I'm going to plant the spindle and the older buckthorn there. And it will just sort of add to the hedge here and make it thicker. There's already a little willow there that's self-seeded. Yeah, so this is just a pile of compost that came out of some containers. So that's the job for this morning. It's forecast rain later, so I'm going to get on with that. And thinking about it, I shall probably prune the raspberries as well, because they're summer raspberries. So yeah, I'll do those now while I think of it. Oh, it's hard work. Come in here for a rest and a cup of coffee, and to take this opportunity really to say thank you to Gabby in Germany. Gabby is a wild gardener, except I think they call them nature gardens in Germany. And she's been a loyal supporter of mine ever since I started, really. And Gabby has a gardening channel. I won't attempt to say it in German, but I think the translation is All Round Nature, and I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, she mentioned my channel on her last video, so that was really nice. Lovely surprise. Thank you, Gabby. And just want to return the favour, really, to encourage any of my viewers to go over and take a look at your channel. If you don't speak German, I'm afraid you'll have to put up with YouTube's rather creative translation, which sometimes is very funny, but it doesn't spoil the enjoyment of the videos at all. So I've done that. I've taken the rhubarb out, and I've put some of the compost on to the raspberries, and I just stepped back to see if the robin would come down and pick over the ground. I think you can See him, he's just in the hedge over there. And I think he might be one of this year's babies because he's quite timid. He's not got used to me yet. But the rewilders think that robins used to follow wild boar around because the wild boar are the keystone species that do the digging. They do what's called rootling, and they turn over the ground, and the robins can come and pick out all the little creatures that are exposed. And of course there's no wild boar anymore, so the robins follow gardeners around. So we're just proxy wild boar, us gardeners. And I've cut out all the old raspberry canes and put them on the bug snug. And I've cut out the weedy little new ones and put them on the pile over there. And I'm going to put some of the compost into this pot that I found. I've put some polystyrene in the bottom instead of crocks, so it won't be so heavy. And the other spindle is going to go in there, down by the bird table. All done. There's one of the spindles in a lovely big pot, so I think that's big enough for it to stay in for quite a while. And I think probably when it gets a bit bigger I shall put it over the road. But I'm going to keep it there for now. And those are the two bushes in place. The spindle on the right and the older buckthorn on the left. And I think the little robin has come, just to make sure everything's done according to the required standard. What do you think, little Rob? Is that good enough for you? These are both little trees or hedging plants, and they're both very good for wildlife because they have flowers in the spring for the insects, for the pollinators, and berries in the autumn and seeds in the autumn for the birds, and their leaves are the larval food plant of our native insects. And there's some sparrows in the hedge there. So yeah, good all-round little trees or shrubs to have in a wild garden. So it just remains for me to say thank you for visiting me again in my wild Welsh garden. Bye from me and bye from the robin. We hope to see you in the next video. I started off with birds breakfasting on the lawn, didn't I? So I'll finish with little robin here and then some birds having a bath before bed. Bye! Hwyl fawr!